My wife told me she was pregnant, but I've been infertile for 3 years. My name is Matt. I'm 43 years old. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. I work as a manager at a logistics company. Nothing glamorous, just a stable job with decent pay. Not a model, not a millionaire. Just a regular guy who enjoys a beer on Friday, football on Sunday, and a quiet morning with coffee on the porch. 5 years ago, I married Brittany. We met through mutual friends. She had just moved to the city after a divorce. Cheerful, open, said whatever she thought straight to your face. That's exactly what got me. I can't stand people who play word games, and she seemed crystal clear honest. Or I just really wanted to believe that. The first 3 years were genuinely good. No exaggeration. We didn't fight over small things. We traveled together. She supported me when I spent 3 months without stable income while switching jobs. I thought to myself, this is it. This is the person I'm not afraid to grow old with. But somewhere around the fourth year, things started to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a crack in a wall, small at first, then bigger and bigger, until one day that wall just falls right on your head. The first thing I noticed, she started coming home from work later. Brittany works as an interior designer, and I always understood that she has a busy schedule. Clients, deadlines, meetings, all normal. But before, she always warned me. Now she'd just show up at 9 or 10 in the evening, drop a clients kept me late, and go straight to the shower. I said nothing, just watched. Then came that habit with the phone, always face down. She'd reply to messages only when I left the room. One time I accidentally grabbed her phone instead of mine. They're the same model, and she literally snatched it out of my hands, smiled afterwards, said, "Sorry, just reflex." But her eyes weren't smiling. I still said nothing. Waited to see if she'd stop on her own. She didn't stop. About 4 months ago, I went on a business trip for 3 days, a partner meeting in Detroit. But at the last moment, the meeting was rescheduled and I came back a day early. I didn't tell anyone. Bought flowers on the way. Wanted to surprise her. When I pulled up to the house, there was an unfamiliar car in our driveway. Dark blue SUV. Expensive, clean. I thought maybe a neighbor parked in the wrong spot. I went inside. Brittany was home, but not alone. At the kitchen table sat a man, about 35, well dressed, confident, the type who likes being noticed. They were laughing about something. There was wine on the table. When I walked in, silence fell instantly. Brittany went pale, literally within a second, then gave me that same smile I had already learned to recognize, the one where the eyes don't participate. "Matt, you weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow?" Plans changed. "Who's this?" She explained. "Kyle, a client. They're discussing a project." I shook his hand, put the flowers on the table, went to change. Didn't make a scene, just listened, as he soon said goodbye, as she closed the door behind him, as she came into the bedroom and started explaining. I nodded. Did I believe her? No. But I stayed quiet. That same evening, I installed a small camera in the hallway. On the outside, it looks like a regular smoke detector. I found it online a few weeks earlier when suspicions had already started forming, just in case. Now, just in case had arrived. For the next 2 weeks, I reviewed the footage every night. Mostly, nothing. But then, one Tuesday while I was at work, Kyle came again. This time, no wine in the kitchen. This time, they went straight to the bedroom, and I saw exactly what I needed to see. I turned off the recording at the 2 minute mark. Couldn't watch anymore. That night was the longest of my life. I sat in the garage with a bottle of bourbon trying to figure out what now. Yell? Call someone? Pack and leave? But then something else crossed my mind. She still doesn't know. That I know. And that advantage could be important. Very important. So I did nothing. Went back to bed, kissed her goodnight, and started waiting. 2 weeks later, I got tested. Because something inside told me the picture wasn't complete yet. The doctor looked at the results, then at me, and said calmly, "The way you deliver very bad news, evenly, without emotion. Matt, you're infertile." By all indications, for several years already. I just sat there and stared out the window. It was raining outside. The next few days, I lived in two parallel realities at once. On the outside, a happy father to be. smiling, hugging her, asking how she felt, whether she had nausea, whether her head hurt. I even Googled a list of prenatal vitamins and quietly left it on the kitchen table, as if I was just being caring. On the inside, I was laying everything out methodically. Fact 1, I'm infertile. Fact 2, she's pregnant. Fact 3, Kyle. Conclusion, obvious. But I needed more than just suspicions. I needed proof. The kind you can't argue with, the kind you hold like cards and place on the table only when the moment is perfect. I wasn't rushing. Rushing is for people who act on emotion. I had already lived through my emotions back there in the garage with the bourbon. Now I was thinking cold. The first thing I did, I quietly called a lawyer. Not a friend, not my brother, not my parents. A lawyer. Booked a consultation under the pretense of general understanding. Just wanted to know my rights. How much does a divorce cost? What counts during asset division? What changes if there's infidelity? What changes if there's a child? The lawyer spoke calmly and to the point. But one phrase stuck with me more than anything. If you are not the biological father and that is proven, you are not obligated to pay child support. But you need to act correctly and in time. Correctly and in time. I remembered that. The second step was email. I had already checked Brittany's phone several times while she slept. Nothing suspicious, she was careful. But people who hide something big almost always make one mistake. They think it's enough to clear the traces in one place and forget about the others. One evening she went to the bathroom. For a long time. About 20 minutes. I took her laptop. No password, she never set one because she was always home when I was around and simply closed the lid. I opened the browser, checked the main email. Nothing interesting. But then I noticed a second account in the corner of the browser. The name was neutral, no last name, just a combination of letters and numbers. The kind people create when they don't want to be found. I opened it. My heart started beating faster. Emails, dozens of them. She wrote to Kyle, he replied. I didn't read everything. No time. I scrolled quickly, catching the key parts words of love, plans, promises. And somewhere in the middle, a letter where she told him she was pregnant. His reply was cold. He was clearly scared. Wrote that this complicates everything and that he needed to think. She replied immediately, long, emotional, convincing him that everything would be fine, that she had already thought it all through. And right there, I found it. That letter, the one after which everything fell into place. She wrote to him that she had a friend who was a lawyer, that after the baby was born, she would file for divorce, that since I was the only one earning, she would get alimony and child support payments, and that this money would be enough for them to start a new life together. I read it twice, not because I didn't understand it the first time, but because I wanted to make sure I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't. I photographed every email on my phone, slowly, clearly, each screen separately, then closed the laptop, placed it exactly as it had been, and sat down on the couch, grabbed the remote, turned on the TV. When she came out of the bathroom, I was watching football. She asked who was playing. I answered, everything as usual. The hospital smelled the way all hospitals smell, disinfectant and anxiety. I held her hand as they wheeled us down the corridor. She squeezed my fingers with every contraction and looked at me, with gratitude, with relief that I was there. I held her hand and thought about the envelope in my pocket. They brought us into the delivery room. The nurse checked everything that needed checking, said there was still time. First labor, the process moved slowly. The doctor looked in, nodded, left. We were alone. This was it. The moment. I had called her parents as soon as we left the house. They live about an hour away, which meant I had roughly 60 minutes. 60 minutes to talk without anyone walking in and interrupting. I let go of her hand, walked to the window, stood with my back to her for about 10 seconds, just breathing evenly. Then I turned around. Brittany, I need to tell you something, while we're alone. She looked at me. Something in my tone, not the caring husband intonation she had gotten used to, immediately changed the expression on her face. What's wrong? I took out the envelope, placed it on her blanket, slowly, no sudden movements. The way you set something very heavy down. Open it. She looked at the envelope, then at me, then at the envelope again, and picked it up, fingers trembling slightly, though she was trying not to show it. The first document, the test results. She read slowly. I watched her eyes move across the lines. I saw the exact moment she understood what was written. Matt, this is. Keep reading, I said quietly. The second document. The divorce papers, filed 5 days ago. With the date, signatures, and all the legal details that left absolutely no room to maneuver. Silence. Real silence. Not the kind of awkward pause in a conversation. The kind that happens when a person is trying to piece together a reality that just shattered in front of them. You knew, she whispered. Not a question. A statement. Yes. How long? Long enough. She closed her eyes, opened them, and I saw something in them I didn't expect. Not anger, not panic. Something that looked almost like relief. Like a person who has been holding a heavy stone for a long time and finally lets it go. But then the panic came. She started talking fast, words piling on top of each other. She repeated herself, got confused, that she would explain, that I didn't understand, that things between her and Kyle had been over for a long time, that she actually loved me, that this pregnancy changed everything, that she had rethought things, that if I would just give her a chance. Brittany? I interrupted. She went quiet. I read your emails. All of them. Another silence. Different. Heavier. She turned toward the wall. I could see her shoulders trembling. She was crying, quietly, almost soundlessly, and I stood there and watched. Not with cruelty, just the painful emptiness that had been inside me for months was no longer there. Something else had taken its place. Not anger, more like exhaustion, and a strange, almost painful feeling of freedom. I'm going to call Kyle, I said evenly, so he knows what's happening. I think he should be here. Don't, please, don't bring him here. This is his child, Brittany, not mine. She started to say something, but I was already walking out of the room. In the corridor, I stopped, took a few deep breaths, pulled out my phone, and found Kyle's number. I had it saved from back when we used to talk as neighbors. Pressed call. He answered after the third ring. Voice groggy, still early. Hello? Kyle, I said calmly. This is Matt. Brittany is at the hospital. She's in labor. I think you should come. A pause. Long one. What? I. Why are you calling me? Because this child is yours, and because I no longer have anything to do with this. I didn't wait for his answer, hit end call. Then I sat down on a bench in the corridor, just sat. Nurses walked around me, gurneys rolled past, somewhere a baby was crying, someone else's, not mine. The hospital lived its usual rhythm and had absolutely no interest in my collapsed life. 20 minutes later, her parents appeared at the end of the corridor, Dad walking fast, Mom barely keeping up. They saw me and immediately understood something was wrong. Not the right face, not the right posture. Matt, what happened? Where's Brittany? She's in the room, I said. She's physically fine, but you need to be with her. I'm leaving. Her dad grabbed my arm. Wait, explain. I looked at him. A decent man, always treated me well. Didn't deserve to find out like this. In a hospital corridor. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I'll explain everything, just not right now. Right now, please be with her. He let go of my arm. They walked toward the room. I walked toward the exit. The car was in the parking lot, with all my things in the trunk just as planned. I got in, started the engine, and just drove, not home, out of the city, just driving down the highway with no particular direction. Didn't turn on music. Drove in silence and watched the road. Somewhere about an hour later, I stopped at a gas station. Bought a coffee in a paper cup, hot, no sugar. Sat on the hood and watched the sun rising over the fields. The phone was vibrating nonstop. Brittany, Kyle. An unknown number, probably someone from her family. I turned off the sound and put the phone in my pocket. The coffee was hot and slightly bitter. I thought, when was the last time I just sat like this? No plans, no roles, no feeling of carrying something heavy that you can't put down? A long time ago. A very long time ago. The sun climbed higher. The day was beginning. An ordinary day for the rest of the world. For me, the first day of something new. What exactly? I didn't yet know. But for the first time in many months, I wasn't afraid not to know. I finished the coffee, threw away the cup, got back behind the wheel, and drove on. A month has passed. The divorce is moving along. Brittany tried to fight it at first. Her lawyer sent several letters with claims, but my lawyer calmly placed the printed emails from the secret account on the table, the test results, and a few other documents I had collected during those months. After that, the letters from her lawyer somehow stopped on their own. Evidence isn't emotion. You can't cry it away, and you can't scream it away. Kyle disappeared from the picture almost immediately, which honestly didn't surprise me. A person who builds a relationship on lies and someone else's money is rarely ready for real responsibility. Where he is now, I don't know, and I don't want to know. I spoke with Brittany's parents separately. Her dad called me himself a few days after everything happened. A long conversation, a hard one. He didn't defend her, didn't ask me to come back, just said he was sorry, that he didn't know, that I was a decent person and deserved better. I thanked him, and I meant it. I told my own parents and brother everything the day after the hospital, sat them down and laid it all out from beginning to end. They listened without a word. My father at the end said only one thing, that the most important thing was that I came out of this hole. My brother just hugged me. Sometimes that's enough. People who hear this story almost always ask the same thing. Do I regret waiting so long? Wouldn't it have been better to act immediately? The moment I saw Kyle at the kitchen table, the moment I got the test results, to confront her and end it? I've thought about that many times. And the answer is always the same. No, I don't regret it. Because if I had acted on emotion, I would have yelled, she would have cried, everything would have dissolved into one big mess of accusations with zero proof. She could have invented an explanation, could have played the victim, and who knows how that would have turned out legally. But I waited, I collected, I prepared. And when the time came, I had everything in my hands, every detail, every piece of evidence, no room for manipulation. A cold head in a burning situation is not weakness. As it turned out, it's the only weapon that actually works. But you know what the strangest part is? The hardest thing in this story wasn't finding out about the affair, and it wasn't even that plan with the child support payments, though that honestly is a whole different level of cold blooded. The hardest thing was something else entirely. That moment at 7 months when she placed my hand on her stomach and the baby kicked. And for 1 second I forgot about everything. Just felt alive, small, not guilty of anything. That child will never be mine, and I will never be his father. But that 1 second, it stayed somewhere inside me. And sometimes I think about it, not with regret, just I think about it. Maybe someday I'll have my own child, maybe not. But I know one thing for certain. If that happens, the person next to me will have chosen me, the real me. Not as a means to an end, not as a backup plan, just me. This time I won't be so quick to trust. But I won't shut myself off either, because living with a closed heart isn't protection, it's just a different form of defeat. That's how this chapter ended. Not loudly, not beautifully, it just ended and a new one began. Blank so far, no words on the page yet. And honestly, that feels good. If you made it to this point, you already know this story isn't really about cheating. It's about what happens when someone decides you're a tool and not a person. And about the fact that even in the darkest place, you can keep a clear head and walk away with your dignity. Drop a comment below. What would you have done? Would you have waited like Matt? Or would you have acted right away? Subscribe to the channel, new stories every week, and check out the previous video right over here. There's plenty to talk about there too. See you in the next one.